Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Leung, Head of FinTech at Invest Hong Kong. We've been planning this webinar with the FinTech Association, the InsurTech committee led by Ledman for literally months. And this is really a great privilege to have a roster of amazing speakers that Ledman will introduce to all of you shortly to talk about the InsurTech topic. Now, before we start to dive into a lot of the amazing conversations around InsurTech, I just want to spend perhaps 2 minutes just to set a scene about why the FinTech Association and us, Invest Hong Kong, feel so strongly about having the webinar, and despite the Typhoon number 8 still going on. Now, basically, I would like to use 2 conversations I had last year to basically put the whole discussion in context. Now, the first was a conversation I had with the CEO of a mainland-based InsurTech company based in Beijing during the FinTech Week last year. Now, the company that I'm going to refer to is a company called Budhdev. I don't know the exact English name because I don't think they have one, but the name literally means reliable cow. So they feel that they have to be working so hard for the customers like a cow, and they are reliable. This is how they came up with the name. So basically, it is a company that offer the infrastructure to allow the insurance companies to offer some, what they call in mainland China, 碎片化, really fragmented, really small insurance products in China. And I asked the CEO, Carol, I said, hey, Carol, so tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that sort of fragmented, micro products. And she said they are basically launching the product after product. It's a span of about 8 years. They have helped several the mainland insurance companies to launch over 1,000 insurance products. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So can you tell me a little bit more about what exactly you're talking about? And she said, well, to start with, they have something called the Mahjong insurance. I was like, wow, never heard of that. So essentially what she meant was, well, I was like, so do you actually get money when you lose money playing Mahjong? And she said, of course not. Is that in Sichuan, for example, one of the provinces in the inner part of China, Mahjong, that sort of gambling the Chinese game, is so popular that a lot of people played it. And some of the older ladies actually, believe it or not, actually died when they play Mahjong, when they get too excited. So that they realized that in China, the province of Sichuan has enough population, even though this is a very specific kind of protection, but then there's an enormous amount of demand locally in that part of the country, so that there's a need. But then in the old days, this is not big enough as a nationwide kind of need, so the mainstream players would not launch it. But with the advent of technology, the InsurTech, the data, they're able to launch this kind of very niche product at a very low cost and also very fast lead time. And then the list goes on. They have something called the spring insurance, where you play some sort of games that you can strain your arm. So it's just a really amazing conversation that really opened my eyes. Now, the other example I want to give in another conversation was with the chief digital officer of a major insurance company in Hong Kong. And I was talking to this lady. I was like, well, so Maria, if you were to be more active in participating in the InsurTech space in Hong Kong, so what do we, the governments and the ecosystem have to do in order to get you to be more active in engaging with the InsurTech community? She said, well, give us more choices. Because in a span of about a year, Maria and her team literally have talked to all the major insurance companies. We thought, okay, so I got it. So we need more choices so that the insurance companies can be inspired about what are the needs that they may not be aware of, but with the innovation from the InsurTech companies, they might be able to help the business to move to the next level. So these 2 conversations are something I just want to use as a very real way to put the need in perspective. So that's why in the beginning of this year, when we finalized our business plan, we felt that it's important to make InsurTech one of the major segments for us in West Hong Kong to make sure that we can provide and expand the choices by bringing in InsurTech companies from around the world so that the insurers in Hong Kong have more choices to expand their capabilities. And in the end, more choices for the consumers, so everybody wins. So the last quick comment I want to make is that the main theme for the Hong Kong FinTech Week this year is about humanizing the FinTech. Okay, so so essentially we feel that the technology is one thing, but then it has to serve a purpose. And that purpose is how do we use InsurTech to make life better for the citizens so that people see the need and value for participating in it. So with that, I don't want to take up too much time from the amazing speakers we have. So I just want to wish all of you safe and good health in today's situation. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Ladman to showcase our amazing lineup of speakers. So off to you, Ladman.
Sure. No, thanks, King. Thanks for having me today and inviting me to be the moderator of today. I fully agree with you. I think Hong Kong has a vibrant ecosystem. It is just more connecting the dots between us from the Hong Kong FinTech Association with InvestHK, with the regulator, and of course with the InsurTech firms now on this panel. Today we're going to focus basically on 3 key questions, and in the next hour, digital transformation at the insurers, where are we in a journey? Challenges and lessons learned working with the incumbent insurers. What could we do better? What are considerations? And thirdly, of course, Hong Kong's role as an InsurTech hub, especially given that most of the InsurTech firms that you see now on the screen are expanding in Asia, and how do they view Hong Kong? Especially, I know that FINEOS Pravin is using Hong Kong as a starting point for North Asia expansion. So very quick introduction before I delve into the questions. So Pravin is a regional VP for Asia for FINEOS, and his mission is to bring the InsurTech admin system from FINEOS from Dublin to Hong Kong and the other Asian markets. So welcome, Pravin.
Hello all, thank you.
Manuel, on my side, at least on the left upper corner, he's the CEO and co-founder of Ignatica. I see him now probably every day on webcast. He was formerly the Chief Technology Officer for Asia Pac for Manuel. Hence, he has been on both sides of the fence, basically. He developed some very viable blockchain solutions to optimize product management and policy admin. So probably we're looking forward to hearing a bit more during this hour from yourself. On my other side, Julian. Julian is a director for sales and marketing for Montoux and is basically spearheading the expansion for the firm here in APAC. Jan, with the Northern Light background on the back, he is based in China. He's the co-founder and chief business officer for the Care Voice. He has been working in China for over 10 years, has a deep understanding of the China system, worked probably on more than 100 projects with the Chinese government. So we're also looking forward to hearing from him the ins and outs of operating in China. And last but definitely not least, Michelle Chen, my co-chair at the InsurTech committee at the Hong Kong FinTech Association. She recently started a new role at Levy Bank as the head of strategic partnership and service innovation, responsible for ecosystem partnerships. So we're also very looking forward to hearing from her. She worked at an insurer before. So welcome, Michelle. You can't see her on the screen due to some technical issues, but she's definitely there. Right,
yeah, hello everyone. Thanks
Right.
for the introduction.
Right. So in this hour, let me just get started with the first topic around digital transformation at insurers. So the large insurers have embarked on the digital transformation journey, especially around sales and distribution for a number of years now. We're now in our pandemic. How has this journey been impacted by events like COVID-19? And be good also to understand how your individual technologies can help insurers to respond to the change in consumer behavior, consumer preferences, and risk. Maybe let me start with Pravin.
Yeah, thank you, Lapman, and thanks for this great forum to share our views. One of the things that's always required, so even when the internet came into existence, the most important thing that was required was the backbone, to have a very powerful backbone so that the world itself could expand. in that sense. What we provide from an insurance perspective is that for the insurance industry, what you need is for several years there has been a tendency to, especially from the life industry perspective, there has been a tendency to run the business on solid legacy kind of systems, solid legacy framework. I think what's evolving now is really something that as a result of the InsurTech's booming, what's required really is, as I put it, like in the Star Wars, you need a mothership which is completely digital and is able to take the hooks from the other ships, can dock into that. So you have various InsurTechs that can add different values at different processes in the value chain, but you really need a solid mothership in the center there, which can hold that all together. And so our push is really, or during this time especially, we look at a push where you need to have the core system itself that's kind of digital in nature and can evolve with time. As King Leung put it, when you have small products which need to be launched at the speed of light, you need the system, the entire ecosystem, to be able to cope with that, including the core system. So that's where we try to position this in the market here.
No, thanks, Pravin. Michelle, any view from yourself, having worked at both insurers and banks and been in the ecosystem for a long time now?
Yes, definitely. Well, the COVID actually impacted the industry a lot. I mean, even the insurance industry. Well, I still recall before I joined my current company, I have a lot of dialogue with my colleagues, the agency team, and also some of the industry players, some of the competitors in other insurer company as well, about the business of insurance, how it's being impacted under the COVID. Indeed, the more labor intensive, the more heavily human interaction relied, the business being impacted most. And so, as you can imagine, such an insurance well-developed country, cities in Hong Kong, the agency business actually impact a lot. The bank, the retail banking in particular, for those insurance distribution via the traditional bank branches, also impact a lot. And that's why, I guess, that is the reason why Hong Kong FI and Hong Kong IA actually grant special approval for non-face-to-face sales of VHIS and QDAP product earlier this year. And also Hong Kong FI also trying to lead a virtual onboarding platform to facilitate the online distribution of some of the product as well. I still recall when I firstly joined the industry 3 years ago, when I talked with my CEO, when I talked with the agency head, well, they both actually didn't find the urgency about the InsurTech transformation as well as the implementation within the company. And not only my company indeed, but also in other major incumbent insurer as well. But now, I guess the COVID-19 is not totally bad in the sense that it actually helped the digitalization of a lot of financial industry, including the insurance side. So we can also see some of the micro-insurance that King just mentioned at the very beginning as well, being launched this year. Like the last project I've launched with FWD, we have launched a micro-insurance concept or product. We have partnered with Octopus to have a small amount of saving product being integrated with the Octopus wallet. And that sort of thing is just the first step, I believe. As I can see, no matter virtual bank or virtual insurer or even more incumbent insurer nowadays are thinking about how they can break down the traditional life or even GI insurance product into everyday life and try to leveraging on the ecosystem partnership network to do the distribution via customers' everyday life as well.
Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Definitely. Actually, yesterday, Manuel and myself, we were actually in a call, in a webcast with the Insurance Authority and also with Selena from the Hong Kong FI to talk about these items. So I think the players are starting to do more in this space, so that's good to see. And maybe going to Manuel right now, so it's probably fair to say that the larger insurers are further ahead in their digital transformation journey, resources, probably mindset as well. But what about the smaller, medium-sized insurers? How does your company help these SME insurers? And do you take a different approach in terms of pricing, servicing? And how do you think as a smaller insurer should adopt InsurTech, so to say?
Thanks, Latman. That's an interesting question. I think I would agree that the larger insurers are farther ahead, for no other reason that they started earlier. So a number of years ago, digital transformation, especially on distribution, was around agency efficiency, helping with some amount of kind of compliance issues, et cetera, and trying to drive productivity. So there was already a bit of a head start with organizations that have a massive agency force, like the large insurers does. I think COVID-19, in a way, accelerated that and pushed it farther. But it also created a really interesting environment where now it's not just about sales, but all the other servicing journeys and post-sales support are now not being able to be done face-to-face either. I think they need to digitize those processes becomes much more of a priority, and straight through across the whole value chain is now a key driver. I think something that both Pravin and Michelle mentioned, there's also a new kind of understanding of how well-positioned organizations, large and small, are to deal with new emerging risks or a new way of handling and envisioning those risks, producing products and services and bringing them to market quickly. And that's basically where we come in, especially as we target SMEs, because so far, if you weren't a large insurer and have a massive war chest to really take on board a very large technology investment up front and hope that the ROI of your product innovation or your service innovation pays off, it becomes a real barrier to innovation, and it becomes a real barrier in that the gap between larger and smaller insurers becomes that much wider. So our approach as a SaaS platform is we basically are able to even out that playing field somewhat, and now smaller insurers can implement their product ideas, do all of their product admin without having to put that upfront significant investment in technology. And from a pricing perspective, our subscription model helps basically insurers innovate without the cost of experimentation, pricing them out of their own potential in the market. So we don't stick them with stranded costs. They basically pay for what they consume. So in a way now, if a medium or smaller insurer has an opportunity to, say, connect with a virtual bank, they have an opportunity to launch a niche product, they can do so without saying, wow, I need a year and $5 million of investment to start putting in all the platforms required to dip our toe in the water, so to speak.
No, great, thanks. This is actually very heartening to hear that it's not just about focusing on the large insurers, but that there are specifically InsurTech products that help the SME insurers as well. So thanks, Manuel. Maybe over to both Julian and Jan. Maybe let me start with Julian. What are your thoughts? You either question around whether the impact of COVID on digital transformation, but also any focus on SMEs? Maybe Julian first and then Jan.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we at Montoux, we work in the life space very much, and the pandemic's an interesting one because I think on one hand, life insurance typically moves quite slow, particularly in mature markets, and on one hand, the COVID-19 has given the insurers the excuse or kind of the kick they might have needed to transform. What that actually means in the short term, at least from what we've seen, is that these transformation projects start with a whole lot of restructures. And so, most of our clients are in the midst of these very complicated restructures at the moment. And so the transformation projects haven't got very far yet, but we do believe that it will provide a really interesting kind of foundation, I suppose, for the next wave of transformation in insurance. And and we believe we're quite well positioned to capitalize the sort of problem that we solve for at Montoux. So we are a decision science platform. We really are about helping clients take the data available to them, whether it be in their own systems or external, and really use that data to make the key decisions that will drive their business forward. So decisions around pricing, retention, sales and distribution, these sorts of things.
Got it. No, thanks, Julian. Jan, anything to add before we move to the next set of questions?
Yeah, I agree with both Julian and Manuel that indeed, I think the problems which were here before, and health InsurTech, again, the CareVoice is operating in health insurance rather than other insurance, been there. I think the insurers looking at on how they can better connect with the service partners, with their customers. They rely a lot on traditional agents. They struggle with being more flexible to integrate with some of the solutions. I think this all three been there before the COVID, but with the COVID now coming in, this is even more the case, because now all of these aspects need to be addressed. And if you look on the insurers and the health insurers right now being able to operate in this market, is what they need to do is, they need to find a different source of the sales. So for your question, whether it boosted the sales or the sales kind of the alternatives, it's definitely true. But what are you going to do if your agents are closed for 6 months at home? So I think the ability of being able to identify the different channels to being able to approach them, it's a one way, but you need to be able to sell something on those channels. And I think this is where it comes down to with the CareVoice. We are looking at not only about like the distribution channels and the smart channels, but more of how can you design the innovative product and how can you set up the system for insurers that they can quickly launch it. And the health product innovation is something which right now in Hong Kong, especially in 2020, is driving our business at the CareVoice. We see the examples of the bigger insurers or the smaller insurers, even the insurers that don't have capabilities to manage the health products at the moment, is being able to tap into it. And how can you help us to set up the health insurance product with the services that can address the specific market? We see much more like the channels that do the e-commerce haven't been selling the health insurance products before, now looking at on some of these products that could fit in, but fit in the same population. So I think definitely the COVID-19 addressed the speed of the situation right now much more. And, the health insurance are looking at towards more InsurTech to be able to help them. The last one, I think, Lapman, if I may, on the large insurers or the SMEs, what Manuel mentioned is definitely true that, the large insurers, usually they spend some time, they spend some money in those systems, behind those systems. They have their applications. There's always some owner of this application who, if you tell him, hey, switch to other applications, he will not be happy. So I think this is also one of the learning at the CareVoice we need to do. How can you live with that existing ecosystem? They already have AIA, AXA, Manulife. They already have some of the base, but how can you plug in? And I think this comes down to more, the architecture and open stack that can communicate with them and being more like a kind of hybrid model with these big insurers. But then definitely, I think the position for SMEs is even more, the accurate, because they are a bit behind. But being able to partner with the, Manuel, with the Ignatica for policy administration, with the CareVoice to be able to have a stack of the services and the products is something which they can even up the play and, can match them, especially in this time of the COVID.
Thanks. I mean, actually, what you said is basically very well summarizing what we said, that the situation is actually, as a side effect, accelerating, and there are actually opportunities down the road. Maybe let's move to the next group of questions, which is around challenges and lessons learned working with the incumbent insurers. And again, we talked about both the large insurers, but maybe we can also spend a little bit of time on how you approach the SMEs as well. Maybe I'll start with yourself again, Jan. So in your time working with the larger incumbent insurers, what are some of the challenges or lessons learned, given that I think one of the purposes for today's event is to attract more InsurTech. So what can they learn from your experience here working either with Hong Kong insurers, regional insurers, Chinese insurers? Anything you could share with the group? And I'll move to the rest, of course, after you.
Sure. No, I think, the first step was to really figure out what they want, what they need, right? So, plug it in, and I think what they not looking at. And this industry, especially in China and now leapfrog into the Hong Kong, is moving so quickly that 2017, when we saw the e-claim being the hit about the health insurance, right now it's more like the really ecosystem. How can we empower my whole product and launch it, and I can just plug in my health insurance plan. So being able to catch up the speed was one of the things that you need to address. I think now being able to figure out what they want, how it can fit in, what is the business case. I think one of the major challenges in 2020, which we had, especially in Hong Kong when we start getting more clients, is the onboarding. And, if any startup can come up and help insurers to speed up their compliance, due diligence, tech alignment, I think there will be a lot of money in there. Exactly. I can tell you that takes time. That takes time. And I think through the learning process, we had one project that we could take from the deal commitment to being live 14 months easily. This was a kind of like a game where you need to go through internal approvals, you need to go through the due diligence, you need to align with the technology and being able to launch it. Now I think like one of the best cases is 3 months, which is already good. But again, I think being able to understand really right from beginning, you might be talking to the business owner, you might be talking to the, the people who will give you the project, but don't leave off compliance. Don't leave off the CFO. Don't leave off the important stakeholders who will come in after when you think it's more like the kind of administration. So that would be one learning, to go with, to really learn about this, the onboarding process. And indeed, I think we established a customer success department that originally customer success was to taking care of the customer, and the performance and the product. But now I think one of the function underneath it is really this project management from deal closing until going live. And this is super important. And I think if you map those processes, you understand what is coming up and who you need to involve, what kind of checks you need to do at the very beginning, it can help. And this is definitely one of the obstacles, whether it's a smaller or bigger insurer. I think in Hong Kong specifically, the insurance authority, been looking at it, and legal and compliance been having quite, worrisome that they don't step on the sideways. So this would be my suggestion, and one of the major obstacles we had right now in the COVID area.
No, thanks for that. I mean, I know probably a lot of InsurTechs are now taking notes. I took notes myself as well around this, to really understand the environment and know at what level to go into, not just the project sponsor, but also legal and compliance, map out the process, try to reduce the time. We have Pravin, any thoughts from yourself? Maybe not just in this region, but maybe also other regions where you have operated before, maybe any differences or any lessons that you could bring to this region as well. That'd be good to hear.
Yep, thanks, Lapman. So I think Jan has put it in a very structured manner. I think just a few things to add to that would be across the world, what we are observing, and we operate in the North America on one side of the globe, and Australia and New Zealand on the other side, and then you have the Asian region in the middle. So what we are observing across is that the sense of urgency to transform has gone to the next level. We see that, whether it's a mature market or it's an emerging market. Talking to customers, for example, in Japan, see that some of them are looking at this as an opportunity to leapfrog something that has been holding back for a very long time. The current situation really has given them, let's say, an excuse to approach the board and have a solid reason to speed up that transformation, which has been pending for maybe a decade. And it gives them a chance to now get into the new league. At least we are observing that the situation currently is also giving an opportunity for, let's call it the technology laggards, to jump that chasm which was there and come more closer to the kind of digital insurer that we are seeing in some of the mature markets. So I think any technology that would help to enable this, to bridge that gap quickly, because one thing is the patience is less at this moment, because it's also a matter of survival at this moment for several organizations. So I think that the level of patience is also low, not to wait for a few years to see something materialize, but get into an agile kind of methodology and see things appearing faster kind of thing. So I think the sense of urgency is definitely gone to the next level right now, I would say, across.
Thanks. Maybe Julian and Michelle, any thoughts from you on this question?
Yeah, I think Jan raised a really good point about, one of the learnings I think for us over probably our history really is it's fundamental to understand the client's problems. Everyone sort of understands that, but I think one of the things, particularly with life insurance, is that the industry actually has a lot of problems, and you've got to make sure you're solving for the right problems, because you can go and talk to an executive and they'll say, I've got this problem, and you might have a really good solution for one of those problems, but if it's not high enough on that list, you're going to struggle to get things moving very quickly. So, one of the things that we've had to do in the last 12 months, sort of in the middle of COVID, is pivot a little bit more to make sure that we're really solving for those really high priority problems. And Pravin mentioned the urgency. You have to be on that list of what's my most urgent problem. So I think for us, that would be, it's a good learning, because you can have a really good business case and you can be saying all the right things, but if you're not solving one of those top priority problems, you'll find it very hard to move things at the speed that you need to move for an InsurTech.
Yes, what I want to supplement actually is about the preparation to reach out to all the key stakeholders in all the department. I mean, all the major department within insurance. Instead of just focusing in one or two of the user department. Well, in particular, if your InsurTech solution is related to distribution, in sales in particular, because it is always channel conflict issue, in particular in Hong Kong, for the digital distribution and for the traditional distribution team. So whenever there is a solution be able to help a particular channel, it would be good actually to engage with other traditional channel as well to tell what your solution actually be able to help them. So to avoid any potential internal obstacle for the implementation. So that's what I want to supplement. All the other issue being mentioned by other panelists actually is very true. So I guess what need to be prepared for InsurTech or startup or company to approach incumbent insurer, definitely is be patient and try to reach out to as many key stakeholders as possible, and probably try to get the endorsement from the a regulator as well. So it would help for further negotiation with different key stakeholders a lot.
I think that sounds great. I mean, if I taking on the lens of InsurTech would be good. I'm hearing all this would be great if I have an FAQ from InvestHK or someone else in terms of what considerations when entering Hong Kong or even have an informal discussion. So I agree with that. And tagging on the part that you mentioned about the regulator, I think given that we're in a regulated industry, the insurance regulator is of course very important. So maybe let me look now to Manuel, given that you have also had a lot of dealings with the regulator. I mean, I think from a Hong Kong regulatory sandbox perspective, the focus has been a lot on distribution, but in my and probably most others' view, the opportunity goes beyond, over and above distribution, probably in other areas like asset management, RegTech, etc. What do you see as the opportunities beyond distribution, and what do you think, what would you advise the regulator? I know you're meeting them yourself anyway, but anything you could share be great too.
Now you're just trying to get me in trouble. But, well, listen, I mean, the sandbox, if you look at it from the regulatory point of view, and this goes a little bit actually to what Jan was mentioning earlier around compliance, risk management of introducing new technologies into the environment for insurers. the regulator is there to protect policyholders and to protect consumers, first of all. But, and they mentioned this, in fact, yesterday quite nicely in our virtual session with them, they have also a secondary mandate, which is to make sure that the insurance industry in Hong Kong remains competitive globally, that it is sustainable, and that it can evolve with the needs of the market. So they start obviously with the part that's closest to the consumer, which is distribution. So a lot of the sandbox is there to help take care of that first layer first. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and it helps the insurance authority start making a good impact as they're driving sensible regulation, as they start inclusion from startups from that point of view. Now, the challenge now becomes, and I think COVID has taught us this, is as you start moving down the rest of the parts of the value chain and you get deeper and deeper into the insurer itself. I mean, Julian was speaking around before how you're taking attitudes towards risk, understanding pricing models, understanding, different structure of products. If you're looking at policy administration, there's a lot of financial reporting regulations. There's a lot of things in there that traditionally insurers and regulators have been very careful not to disrupt. So I think as we work with the regulators to demonstrate, first of all, that the technologies that we're bringing to bear allow insurers to move faster, move farther along the curve of what they need to be precisely to take care of their policyholders better, to address their needs better, to respond to their services better, and to do so in a way that preserve that stability of how the operation functions, then I think you're going to start seeing that sandbox expand to, and maybe even, clone itself in slightly different ways. I think what's interesting to me is that so far, very few of the larger insurers, at least, haven't established their own sandboxes as a response to say, we need an actual environment on how to bring these technologies and see how they work within our particular architecture, our infrastructure, or understand how it works with us before we let it loose and before we go to the market. I mean, it's interesting, the customer success story that John just told. We spent the last year doing that with one of our first clients to help them, in fact, establish a sandbox to make sure that we had what was needed to make sure that those projects move forward and that everyone from infrastructure, security, operational risk, operational compliance is involved and understands all the moving parts in driving new business models and new products forward. And I think the regulatory frameworks, I think we're actually quite lucky in Hong Kong that the regulator is proactively engaged in dialogue as opposed to saying, figure it out and come back to us when it's time to get a stamp. So in a way that does make it a little bit more conducive if we engage and if the insurers themselves partner with the InsurTechs to bring that conversation openly to the regulator. I think there's nothing but success in the future for us.
If I react to this, I think it's definitely true that some of the insurers, they have a roadmap of bringing, you hear the platforms and ecosystems and, bringing their own big ones. But to be honest, they don't also know like how it's going to look like, what is needed. They know that maybe internally they don't have experiences. And, what Manuel mentioned that they are, looking at, for example, for ways how I can operate already what I want to do, maybe externally or, with the InsurTech and, being able to find out my good architecture, what I want to do internally, and then having a way how to bring it back. And I think this is something which, a lot of insurers are looking at. And if they want to engage right away, and have some of the, they cannot wait 2-3 years before they develop some of the systems. So this could be the kind of intermediate solution, and definitely it's happening in the market and in Hong Kong, where do they have a plans to build in the big platforms, but looking at also on ways how they can have intermediate solutions before they get there, or before they know exactly what they want to do.
Got it. And anything from maybe Singapore or the rest of the world, Julian, Pravin, or Michelle, from the regulators, how they deal with InsurTechs that this audience might benefit from? Anything you've seen, heard that would be useful?
So I think one very quick example that I would like to share is definitely I agree with Manuel that Hong Kong IA, they are now engaged very much proactively in the dialogues of how to promote digitization further. One example that comes to me to mind outside of Hong Kong, which is in Singapore, and I see that the MAS in Singapore, which is actually the regulator there, also has an officially launched sandbox in which they promote this kind of connection between the insurers and InsurTech. Of course, because they have a neutral role to play, so they don't actually promote any particular InsurTech or bring in any particular insurer, but they at least provide a platform officially as an official sandbox, which is very well kind of structured right now because it's been a couple of years since that's been launched. So I think something like that is very useful for insurtechs like ourselves to be able to prove the technology in the market before it's let loose, as Manuel said. So I think those are some good examples there.
No, great, thanks. I think there was a couple of years ago, one of the I heard different regulators were talking about what about combining sandboxes so that insurtechs could expand quicker by basically giving a nod to a particular product to give a nod to a particular product for it to be expanded. Sorry, I was a bit distracted. I got someone raised a question, so I was reading it at the same time. Sorry for that. So maybe let's move on to the next part, given that we have probably less than 15 minutes. So let's focus a bit on Hong Kong's role or potential as an insurtech hub, what you see Hong Kong could do better, and maybe how that fits into your own expansion plans. And Pravin, at the very beginning of the discussion, I alluded to that FINEOS yourself, you selected Hong Kong as your North Asia headquarters to further expand. Could you share a bit more what attracted you to be here in Hong Kong, and in your trade-off, maybe some things that Hong Kong could do better that InvestHK or the rest of us could consider?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think Hong Kong, just like traditionally it has had, still continues to be, I would say, one of the top financial services hub in Asia, right? And from an insurance perspective, most of the regional insurance headquarters are still based in Hong Kong, right? And I'm hoping that Hong Kong is able to recover from the COVID situation quickly, because it's got that strength where you have the regional headquarters located. It doesn't take too much for it to leap into a place where it can also become a kind of a hub for proofing the concepts of digital insurance. So when we looked at Asia, for us, the choice was very clear that we need to have our regional headquarters based in Hong Kong. There is the regional leadership based in Hong Kong for insurance companies. And also, at the same time, it's not a huge market. It's a reasonably sized market where you can try out the new technologies and prove yourselves. And it is right next to mainland China, which gives it a good strategic location in that sense, that you have a bigger market there. You also have a market like Japan, which for us is the #1 market in this region, largest market. And so it gives a chance to prove something in a smaller market like Hong Kong, also closer to China. And at the same time, strategically having regional headquarters. So I think there are several plus points all converged in Hong Kong, which made the decision kind of clear for us,
I mean, some people that I speak with, they see Hong Kong itself as a sandbox for further expansion into the rest of Asia. Maybe Jan, looking at from mainland China into Hong Kong, anything you think that Hong Kong should do better, or anything that China did that is replicable for Hong Kong? Is any thoughts from your view working in China that'd be good?
No, look, I think if you look on a health insurance itself, it's still poised for quite a massive growth, I think, in the upcoming years. And China starting to play a bigger and bigger role. I think, the market's growing like 20%. I think they already covering 10% or 15% of the whole health insurance premium market in the world. So this is definitely poised for you know, being able to do a lot of different things within this market growth. But if you look on actually the innovation across the InsurTechs, health is still relatively low. I think about 60-70% is non-health related. And then as you discussed before, the health technology or health InsurTech is a lot about the distribution and a lot about the claims. And it's very little still about like the product innovation. Just look on COVID-19 when, you know, it hit. It took maybe the insurers, I don't know, the first ones which were kind of praised was 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Oh, we have a new product with the COVID-19. But then imagine that if you need to also adjust your digital technology and services around it, it was not as easy to do it within the two. Some companies still took 6 months to launch just the new insurance product around the COVID-19. So I think going back to your question for China, I think, you know, where I see the big potential is really growing around the product innovation and the services. And I think that China is really positioned right now to lead the global innovation around this. You know, I think now how it's coming to the Hong Kong and the Southeast Asia market is, I think, you know, this product innovation and the services are driven by, you know, COVID-19 is one thing, but you have a younger population, very digital savvy. I don't know, for InsurTechs, if you're trying to attract them to go to the Hong Kong or China, you know, people don't do necessarily anything without the phone anymore in here. So I think the literacy, the speed of the literacy of the digitalization is very big. And moving back to the Hong Kong, I think China is a big market, but it's still developing around the health insurance. And as Pravin mentioned, you know, the Hong Kong is major market. It's still big, one of the biggest hubs, and it's quite competitive and it's saturated. So if you want to try your innovation, and if you succeed, you are good poised that it will work, you know, in the other markets. So for us, actually, the strategy was coming from the mainland China, where we, you know, had our headquarters and build out our solution, is going to the Hong Kong, because then you can compare two markets. You can compare the growing market, how your solution fits there, and then you can compare with the saturated, very competitive market, how does it fit? And once you find a good balance between those two, then you can expand across the Southeast Asia or the Europe, and then you can be looking at on a similar kind of characteristic of the market. You know what kind of is the secret sauce for a growing market like a China, but you also know maybe how to approach, you know, the Singapore as it would be similar to the Hong Kong. So I think this would be my uptake on a comparison between the China and Hong Kong. China, big potential, but Hong Kong still, you know, I think the maturity, and this is the kind of the balance where your solution can fit in and can test a lot of things, how to develop on a roadmap moving forward.
Thanks for that. And anything, Julian or Michelle, to add?
Well, from my point of view, InsurTech in Hong Kong is still not very well advanced and very well implemented or developed. So there should be a lot of potential well, for Invest Hong Kong to introduce more and more InsurTech vendor or technology company here, actually to better develop the InsurTech industry here. Well, taking the advantage or the opportunity during the pandemic situation. I guess it is the most ideal time for InsurTech to develop in Hong Kong in particular. But then Hong Kong is not the only market for the InsurTech company to develop after they have the technology implement here, because Yan also mentioned there is a lot of insurer have their company or branch set up in Hong Kong. It could be a stepping stone for implementation within the region. Say for example, FWD, well, it is an APAC-based insurance company. I believe for a solution being implemented in Hong Kong, it could be easily developed and repeat in other regional hub within the APAC area as well. And for other incumbent insurer, they also have a lot of branches in APAC, in other regions around the world. So Hong Kong could be actually a very good test bed for the technology which an insurer haven't yet implemented, or for actually trying out for those product innovation ideas?
Thanks. Julian, anything? Any concluding thoughts on this?
Thanks, Lapman. I mean, for us, I mean, I think the opportunity for Hong Kong is immense. You know, we looked at, as an Asian hub, we looked at Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Tokyo had, Japan had by far the largest revenue upside of those markets for us. But Hong Kong with like Pravin mentioned, with being the HQ for regionally for some really large players, and being on the doorstep of China, which is a very fast growing life market, it was actually a pretty clear choice for us. That Hong Kong was a really excellent place to be based out of.
Thanks. I mean, we'll probably have another 5 minutes before I move back to King to conclude. Maybe I'll give everyone 1 minute to share whether it's a piece of advice for InsurTech, for the regulator, for Hong Kong, for incumbents. Maybe I'll start with Manuel, and then each one can use your airtime for a minute.
All right. Advice for InsurTechs and regulators. Well, listen, I mean, the opportunity both in Hong Kong and across Asia really is massive. It comes down to execution, and execution is not just about technology, it's also organizational. You need to be prepared to engage with your organizations, whether they're large or small, and have actually thought about how you operate as a business in a way that meets their needs, and their needs are not just about the problem you solve. That's something that I think was very important that was highlighted earlier. So being able to, say, present a partnership means that you are partners. And that means understanding their organization, their needs as an organization, as well as the needs of a business and the needs of their clients. And if all those things line up, the upside for the market here is really massive. So, I mean, we're certainly very excited about all of the opportunities for the clients that we're working with, and what we see, frankly, developing in the market.
Thank you. Organizational preparedness and understanding. Pravin?
I think I agree with Manuel there. I think there's a great upside. We can only look at an upside for a market like Hong Kong, for a place like Hong Kong. And I think what's very important is from my organization perspective, we always kind of look for a blueprint ecosystem, and it's very important to see which are the areas that are currently lacking in that blueprint. Very important to study that, and for InsurTechs, I would suggest that look at the areas which are at this moment kind of a blue ocean, where not much work has been done or much innovation has been done. There are several areas like that. For example, we always, for our core system, we depend on digitization of data, interpreted AI-based digitization, not just an OCR technology. So look at areas like this, which can interpret the data from a contextual industry perspective. For example, health insurance, digitization of that data, which can then be processed by the rest of the ecosystem. There are areas like this which have to be spotted and in the blueprint and had a look. And so that way, once you do that, you have a great ocean in front of you for expansion. That would be my 2 pence on that.
Thanks, Pravin. Good to hear about having these symbiotic prerequisites done to digitalize data before the ecosystem can flourish a bit more. Jan?
Well, look, I think the first one, and I think it applies to any startup or InsurTech, it's having the strong team that it's not only local but also international. And I think this mix works very well at our side. There's this passionate team who understands the market but also can bring the international kind of the knowledge. It really fits well, especially when you're then engaging with the C-level insurers as a InsurTech startup. It's very important. So I think this is no-brainer. And if I look at, to give the advice from the CareVoice platform point of view, I think whatever your product is, an InsurTech, whether it's a platform, whether it's a service, I think one of the very important aspects is that it can be integrated relatively well. We have a head of the, the digital transformation at one insurance company asking us that he expects that the team would, do the workshop with his team, being able to guide them, with, this transformation, because this is something which sometimes the insurers don't have necessarily the internal capabilities. They build in it, but they don't. In the health insurance, PNC companies, some of them, they're underwriting policies like if you would bump your car. So it doesn't work like this. And I think this is quite important that the solution can work very well with the system. And then I think the scalability. I think any insurer in Hong Kong and mainland China and Southeast Asia, where they look at it is look at, hey, do I want to just do the POC, or do I really look at you as a more strategic partner, which I can scale. I can scale across there may be different plans. I can scale maybe across the different markets. And then what applies more to us is, we're looking at more on a specific value customers and being able to bring the ecosystem of the different services, not necessarily compete with them, but being able to live with what insurance already have. And I think this is very important that, this kind of synergy on the open architecture, being able to work with them, because everyone is doing something, more or less. Everyone is developing, has a roadmap for the digital transformation. So you need to be able to kind of live with them and find a way, how can you, even with the one piece or two pieces, being able to get in. And then it's up to your capability, how can you grow.
Got it. No, thanks. Definitely fully agree with the diversity of the team in our ecosystem. Julian, Michelle, any concluding words from yourselves?
Well, from my point of view, the regulator in Hong Kong actually is on a very good track by facilitating the InsurTech development in Hong Kong, by organizing different sort of discussion platform, or say, for example, the future task force, etc. Well, I guess it is always important for the regulator to be the lead, to endorse service innovation within the industry. And definitely, I believe FinTech Association Hong Kong do have a role to work with regulators as well as InvestHK to further enriching the ecosystem of InsurTech development in Hong Kong in future.
No, thanks. Definitely unleash potential through collaboration. Julian?
Yeah, I think mine's probably a repetition of a point that Jan made earlier, but this life probably and health too, they're difficult industries to revolutionize. You might have the best idea in the world, but these are difficult industries to revolutionize. So you have to find a starting point. You have to find a way to plug into the ecosystem, and that's where your best chance, particularly of early success, will come.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. I think thanks everyone for joining. I'll give the mic back to King.
Thank you, Ladman, and thank you to all the speakers. And I just want to wrap up by just saying a few words. Now, first of all, when we look at the remits of Invest Hong Kong, the FinTech units, basically our job is to serve three major purposes for the community. Number one, we would help to bring up the awareness. So that's why we have the Hong Kong FinTech Week, a webinar like this, so that we can get more people to be better informed about the developments of the sector. Secondly, we work very closely with our colleagues overseas, in which we have over 30 plus cities around the world, in which our colleagues overseas are trying to look for the right kind of, for example, FinTech, InsurTech companies to invite them over to Hong Kong to enrich the ecosystem. And third, we also work with a lot of stakeholders in the market to increase the level of adoption. Now, so I guess I just want to focus on the last points about adoption. Now, while the awareness, the bringing companies from internationally into Hong Kong, this is something that we can somewhat control. But then at the end of the day, it's always a demand-supply situation. So as much as we go out and find the companies that can fill certain gaps in the ecosystem, but then if the demand side, i.e. the insurers, maybe the IFAs, if the enterprises are not opening up the wallets to try to bring in some solution, even a POC will be fine, right? But if that first step does not happen, regardless how much we do to try to bring in guys from overseas, it wouldn't matter. So that's why this is, again, this is a message that we will keep on working closely with the FinTech Association and the other stakeholders like the Insurance Authority, FSTB, the Policy Bureau, the Cyberport, Science Park. So there are a lot of stakeholders. We are all kind of doing the same thing, that we're really trying to promote adoption. Because we know once that adoption takes place, then good things happen. Because at the end of the day, as we all know, in the startup space, once you demonstrate traction, then the investment money, the VC, the angels, the money will come. So the really first step is adoption. So my last word is about the upcoming Hong Kong FinTech Week that my team has been working tirelessly for the past many months to put together. This is virtual this year. And one of the major themes is, surprise, InsurTech. So we spend lots of time to try to address this topic. The FinTechHK is a website. So I highly encourage you to log on and to register the different tier of tickets, some for free, some you have to pay for a fee for. But then there's just enormous amounts of content this year. We got over 300 plus world-class speakers, from the Ray Dalio, the investment guru from Bridgewater, to Neil Shen, the legendary VC from Sequoia Capital China. We got the CEO, the worldwide CEO of NASDAQ, the governor of the People's Bank of China. The list goes on. So we got an amazing list of world-class speakers to really pick their brains on the latest trends of FinTech going forward. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us in the InsurTech insurance space to learn from the other segments as well, like banking, open data. There's a lot of things happening there that are transferable over to the insurance side. So with that, I just want to thank all of you. Again, good friend Ledman for hosting the panel and all the other speakers that I would like to reach out to you individually after the webinar to learn from you. But again, this is a great start. So we just keep on charging ahead, and hopefully next year, this time, if we look back, we make further progress when it comes to adoption of InsurTech in Hong Kong. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.